Good evening. I'm so excited to be part of Grandpa's centenary celebration and give a tribute in memory to Grandpa. Such a privilege and an honor. If you ask me to name some people who I most admire, Grandpa would definitely top that list. He is my hero. I asked myself, what was it about Grandpa that made him so special? I know I'm biased since I grew up with him from when I was 5 years old. I could tell you the story of how, in the early days of first grade, I was dropped off by the rickshaw driver at the wrong school. Not sure where I was, I tried to blend in wearing the wrong uniform for that school. Grandpa came that day and took me home. I could tell you the story of getting into a scooter accident at school when I was again in first grade, and how Grandpa was there and took me home. I could tell you how Grandpa and Grandma's house was a refuge for me, especially during those awkward teenage years. If I started telling my stories about Grandpa, all my stories, we'll be here forever. Instead, I'll focus on three qualities that impacted me the most and tells you of the person I know, I love, and consider my hero. Helping others. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, "The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful. It is to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference, that you have lived and lived well." Grandpa embodied that. He was his brother's keeper, as it says in the Bible. During World War II, he felt the responsibility to join the war and fight for his fellow countrymen. He was taken as a prisoner of war, but I've never heard him talk about it, and I wish I'd asked him more about it. Him being the eldest son instilled in him a sense of responsibility to his siblings. I've seen him support his sisters when they were in need. I've heard him instill the value of education and push his brothers to be the best version of themselves. Throughout his life, he was always helping someone or the other. I remember walking into his bedroom one day where he was sitting at his table in one corner of the room and writing something by himself. When I asked him what he was doing, he mentioned that he was writing a check to support some tribal girls in a remote area. That conversation made a huge impact on me to help others, but to do it quietly in the privacy of your room. Secondly, I've seen him investing in relationships and how that was a central theme for him and Grandma. It was such a privilege to be growing with Grandpa and Grandma. Grandpa and Grandma knew the value of investing in people, his friends, his family, his students at Bible college, his colleagues, and literally anyone who needed him. Grandpa and Grandma always had a stream of visitors coming in from various walks of life, and it made life so much richer. Every weekend, we were traveling and meeting with someone or the other. These included Major Devasahayam, Uncle and Auntie in Pallavaram, Ratnam Chitti in Nanganallur, Rajamama and family in Kodambakam, many visits to Tevikodu, Nagarkoil, and so on. We also constantly had friends like Jay Auntie, Stella Auntie, others spending the day with us. During Christmas, we would have Grandma's friends come over, make palaram together with various families on the pump stove. Just an amazing experience. I've also heard there was this family which had a dairy farm, and how Grandpa inspired his two sons. He used to give them money if they passed or got a better score or something like that. Didn't have to do that, but he did that just to encourage people, invest in people. That's who he was. And finally, I would be remiss if I did not mention Grandpa's faith in God. I remember watching him getting up at 4:30 in the morning to pray to God for his various divinity exams or for the upcoming lessons that he had to teach his students. Every Sunday after church, Ruby and I would have to memorize a Bible chapter. And we would not get lunch until we completed those scripture lessons, because Grandpa really put an emphasis on spiritual education. His favorite verses came from Psalms 1, 23, 46, 91, 121, and various chapters in Isaiah and Corinthians. These Bible verses have become my favorite too, and I try and teach them to my children when I can. When Grandpa's dad, Daniel Joshua, had his first child, Esther, a girl, Daniel Joshua made a promise to God that he would dedicate his second child to God if the second child was a son. When Grandpa learned about this as he was growing up, he wanted to make sure he did not fail his father. He started preaching the Bible in his village when he was young. He continued this as a lay preacher in Bombay Parel Church and multiple churches in Chennai, in Meenambakam, Palvandangal, Ullagaram, and other places. He did not stop there, but continued to deepen his faith by earning his various degrees in divinity and theology. Grandpa wanted to share his faith to the next generation of Bible scholars and worked at various Bible colleges, like Hindustan Bible College, Maranatha, and others for more than 20 years after he retired. He really did make his dad proud. Grandpa was so in touch with God that you felt at peace after praying with Grandpa for anything that was bothering you. I remember in 2010, a few months before he passed away, he asked me where my children were, and I told him I had no children yet. He stared into space for some time and then turned to me and said, "Chriswin, you will have a son." He passed away without seeing my first son, Jay, but I know his presence was with all my 3 children. In conclusion, there are so many more things I can talk of. How he was always active and getting things done. How he was inseparable from his bicycle that he took to places near and far. How he used to distribute tracts in various villages where he really wanted the people to know about God. How he always loved Grandma and was inseparable from her and took care of her until the end with such love. Every day, I ask what would Grandpa do when I'm faced with some of life's questions. And while I don't get it right all the time, I'm hoping I make him proud just a little bit more. Thank you.